Hi, third, fourth, and fifth grade leaders. We're preparing for March 17th, almost at the end of our series goal, where we're helping kids ask the big question, what is God like? God is holy, good, and loving. And I think the "and" is a big part of what we need kids to understand, is there are so many other people, other religions, other sects of religion that their gods are not all three of those. They may be one of those things, but many of them aren't even two of those things. And that's why many religions have multiple gods. It's because their God is not omniscient and is not omnipresent, and what is not all of who God is in one thing. That is why our God is the true God. And we need to know better who he is so that we can have a better relationship with him. This week, we're talking about how the tabernacle was built. And when the tabernacle was built, remember last week we talked about the golden calf. Obviously, the people were having a hard time remembering that God was who they were supposed to worship. And so while Moses was on the mountain, he's like, okay, I'm going to give you specific instructions, Moses, on what you're supposed to do when you go back to the people. The people need to remember that I am their God and that I am the only God. And so you're going to build this tent as a reminder that I am there with you. Now, remember, as we study Jesus, that Jesus is God with us. Remember, Emmanuel means God with us. And so the tabernacle was the placeholder, if you will, for Jesus coming, who was going to be the true God with us. But until Jesus could come, because all of the things that needed to happen so that Jesus could come at the right time hadn't happened yet. And so until that time happens, God says, this is how you're going to remember that you have relationship with me. You will do that through the ceremonies in the tabernacle. And this is how I will respond to you, and this is how you will respond to me. And so he gave very, very specific instructions. In fact, all of the offerings were ways to help the Israelites know, not just to make a bunch of rules, help the Israelites remember that God is the true God. And so if they decided to go off on their own and do it their own way, there were going to be consequences. If they decided to do it God's way, then there would be fragrant offerings. There would be animal sacrifice offerings. There would be all of these different ways that the Israelites could know that God was the true God. Now, also, remember, Jesus is going to be at the end of the story as well. After Jesus ascended back into heaven, he said, I'm coming back. And he's coming back, and he's going to be ruler over all. He has not been the ruler that God promised yet. He did come and die. He did raise to life again, and he's going to come back in the end times. He's going to come back and be the ruler over everything. And so we're still looking for the same Jesus that the Israelites were looking for then, okay? Crazy. I know it's hard to believe that this little story helps us see so much of who God is and what God had in mind for us. All right. Your social activity for this series is called 5-second rule. I hope the kids are having fun with this game. I know I've had fun listening to their answers and their giggles as others have tried to come up with enough time. I don't know if you've tried to play it with them, but it's rather challenging. So keep having fun with that. To review the rules real quick for those of you who haven't been here to lead yet, what you're going to do is one kid is going to be in the hot seat, and somebody else is going to read a question to that kid. And then they have 5 seconds to give the answers. On many of the cards, it says name 3. Some of the cards say name 2. So what they're supposed to do is give 3 or 2 answers, depending on what the card says, before their time goes out. If they get all 3 things out before the time goes out, they get a point. And then the play continues. The person to their right gets to answer the exact same question. But here's the point. Here's the challenge with this game. that person cannot give any of the exact same answers that the person ahead of them did. So they have to be able to listen. They have to be able to pay attention to everything else that's going on. If you want to simplify this game so that it doesn't take as long and it might not be so frustrating for everyone, you can make it to where you have only 3 people who answer the same question, and then the next 3 people get a new question, or however you want to do that. I think it'd be fun to see how many times we can make it all the way through the game where everybody is where everybody's getting points and also having a chance to answer, and everybody has different answers. Hopefully they're figuring out how to do that well. All right, during your small group time, I will have the offering buckets that we usually use for during our worship service. They'll be sitting in the back of the room so that when you're ready to do that part of the small group activity, you can go pick those up. I think it's important to use the same ones. We could use any bucket, it really doesn't matter, but the kids know what that means. And so as you are talking about what it means to take up an offering, just ask them, what do you think, if I said to you that we're going to take up an offering, what do you think I would expect you to do? And listen to their answers and see how many of everybody, what kind of answers you get. Most of them are probably going to answer money. But what we want to help them see is that there are different things that God desires from us than just money all the time, and that we can offer God more than just money. That in Bible times, people were asked to offer animals, people were asked to offer jewelry, people were asked to offer oil, people were asked to offer grain or bread or candles around their house where they would burn the oil so that they could have light. So an offering can be any gift that you give to God. And so what you'll do after that is pass out the pieces of paper and ask kids to write down things that they think that they could offer to God. What are some things that they have besides money? They could put money on there too. What are some things that they feel like they could offer to God as a way to show Him what He means to them? Remember, the offering was a way to show God who they think He is and to give Him the honor that is due to Him. So after kids have had a few minutes to write down what they would give to God, they can fold it up if they want to, or they can just put it in the offering bucket as it comes by. And then after you've collected all of that, you can read through them really quick and then mention a few of them. Realize that some people's offerings may be very personal, and you may want to explain that to the group, that our offering is very personal at times. So we're not going to make fun of each other. We're not going to be silly about all of this. We want to come to God with all of the honor and respect that He is due, because He means so much to us. And then also remind them that even if something seems really small to one kid, where it might not be to the kid that wrote it down, that God knows the heart behind every gift, and that it's important for us to acknowledge that. So everything we have, our time, our talents, and our possessions, are from God. And so when we realize that everything we have is from God, hopefully that makes us a little bit more generous and more willing to offer things back to Him. I hope this sparks a really great conversation within your small group. I hope that kids are asking big questions, that they're beginning to see this big picture that God had in mind of creating a way for us to have a relationship with Him, and things like the tabernacle and Jesus as our tabernacle, God with us, to build our relationship with Him. That all of this is not just a cute little story, that God had all of these steps in mind as they're all happening through the Bible and in our lives today. Thank you for leading. Thank you for building relationships with kids. You have your basketball goals for your memory verse if you get to it. I encourage you to spend a good time in prayer today with your kids and help them process some of the information that we've all learned together. Have a great time.